Everything that I actually say is imagination because it's coming out with words. And words are only just a sound that describes a thing. It's not actually the thing. But I'm going to tell a story anyway. We all in our society, will you admit we're all nuts? Look how we're raised. We're confused. We're broken. We feel like we don't belong. We all feel alone. That's not the natural human state. So it's good to kind of know that at least as theory, that this is not the natural human state. And the goal of spirituality, the goal of non-duality, is to get us back to this natural state. So think about the time of Buddha. He was raised Siddhartha. He was raised, a fabulous prince. Everything was wonderful. And then he accidentally saw how all the other people were living, how all the poor people were living, and that it was horrible. And it like broke his brain because in just that flash of a second, he was able to see that everything he'd been taught since he was young was a lie, and it was such a lie that there was no way out of it. It was a full circle of lies that he couldn't figure out how to just pop free of. So he went on a spiritual search. And at his time, at our time too, to go on a spiritual search, you have to rely on other people that are on a spiritual search. So he went out and started doing the thing of the day, which was austerity and starving himself and living in the forest with other seekers, almost to the point where he killed himself. And then one day, he broke through that circle of lies. And the only way you can do it is to break completely through. Just drop the whole thing and be in just a complete state of not knowing nothingness. There's not a word to describe it. Hariom Tat Sat, the truth. So he wakes up and he's like, wow, dude. He goes running back to, all the guys that had starved themselves in the forest with him. And let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about this. And then he spent the whole rest of his life trying to tell the people in his society about how to get to this state. That's one story. Let me tell a different story. Now, the story of Siddhartha, of Buddha, is fairly well known, and I just gave a not really good description of it, right, for all of you scholars out there. Let me give another story about something that I know very vaguely, but that I imagine could be the truth of existence. Let's imagine more a native society before what we call civilization had come in. And we're talking brilliant people. We're not, we think of savages. They were just stupid and, they weren't. They were brilliant and well thought and deep and knowledgeable, and actually very in touch with what can go with what can go wrong with human beings, and what to do about it. So in my imaginary native society, right, of course, which I've never lived in, the elders were wise because they had stepped out of their own possibilities of insanity. But every young person that would be born would go through their lives having moments and moments and moments where they need to choose to cling to that insanity, to cling to that false self that feels that it's important, that it's separate, and that things are about me, me, me. That's kind of the state of young human beings, isn't it? Today's world, it's the state of pretty much all the adults as well. But we're in my imaginary society, right? So this would be relatively the purpose of the vision quest. The young person gets to a point where they're like, wait, I don't understand. And so they get sent off on whatever kind of a vision quest the particular society has. It would a different journey for men and women because we don't really have the stories of how women would face these vision quests. But let's not imagine that it didn't happen for us women. So this young person does something dramatic. It's like starving, out by themselves in the forest until finally the spirit animals start talking to them. And they're like, oh, look. And so they like reach that state that Buddha had gone to, but they hadn't been quite as lied to when they were young. And so as they come into this state of wholeness, everything just makes sense. Then they go back to their tribe, and there's all the fully self-knowing adults that welcome them in. And it's like, welcome to being an adult human being. Welcome to being the guide, the participant of our society. And they're welcomed in like that. Totally different than Buddha's experience, where he woke up and there was nobody else there sharing this with him. He did a really good job of creating a society that had that for a while. But it was working against a whole bunch of momentum of all the insane people and kind of ended up insane anyway. But remember, let's go back to my imaginary society, where this is what it meant to be a fully involved adult human being. So maybe we should think of our spiritual search as adulting, coming out of the selfishness of childhood into that place where we can work and belong and be part of and contribute to what's around us, where we're responsible, not responsible as a sacrifice, but responsible as something that you take on with your strength of being